Hello everyone, thank you for downloading my top 3 ways to avoid burnout for the LGBTQ community. I'm Carol and I'm so excited because I know you are going to get some great value out of this. First of all, a quick exploration of what burnout actually is. It's more than being a bit tired, that's for sure. Burnout is a state of exhaustion and overwhelm, usually, but not always, caused by your work, that affects your well-being in multiple ways. You're physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually spent. Sleep doesn't refresh you. You're constantly feeling drained, helpless, and unable to cope. You're disengaged from your work and may actually hate it, even if you've loved it for many years. It can be difficult for you to concentrate, so you're more likely to either make mistakes or take longer over different tasks. You're pretty irritable too, so your relationships are probably suffering as well. It's a pretty crap place to be, as well as actually increasing your risk of cardiovascular disease. So it's best to avoid this, right? I am a practicing psychologist now, but for a fair few years after graduating from university, I worked in hospitality. It was an intense industry to work in, but I loved the variety in what we dealt with. I like having things to do and achieve in my life outside of work as well, and couple all of that with my insomnia, less than ideal diet, and desire for some social contact, and I was left an overstretched and exhausted Carol. Well, of course, I couldn't keep up like that. I eventually ran myself into the ground. I got sick from pushing myself too hard and not looking after myself. I was actually out of action for a total of 7 days. I had no energy and I was unable to move or tolerate most sensations because everything hurt. Even the sheets on my bed. I was back to work as soon as I could just about manage a shift, collapsing as soon as I got back home. My energy came back gradually, and as soon as I could, I was back to pushing myself ultra hard with everything. This became a regular cycle which took 3 months from start to finish. During a routine appointment, a doctor picked up on what was going on. The chronic stress I'd been under had made me sick to the point of now having a condition that I have to manage for the rest of my life. Now, I'm telling you this so you can see that avoiding burnout really is in your best interests in the long term as well as the short term. We are going to be looking at how to avoid or prevent burnout rather than how to get out of an episode of it. Dealing with burnout is a different thing. If you currently are burnt out, do take notes because this will help you to avoid future burnout episodes. Now, we're going to look at my top 3 ways to avoid burnout for the LGBTQ community. This is tailored for the community because we are more likely to experience burnout than our straight cisgender peers. So, number 1 on the list is know your rights in the workplace. Short disclaimer before we go on, I am in the UK, so I can only really talk about employment in the UK, and even then, I'm no expert. If you think you might be being treated unfairly by your employer, or there are some other grievances, you really are best speaking with the likes of your HR department, union rep, local citizens advice bureau, council, or some other organisation like ASOS. So, in my experience, no one enters the workplace knowing all of their rights, and they certainly don't know how to make sure they're being treated fairly and legally. Please do not take it for granted that your employer is treating you properly. I have seen employers exploit their position of power over young and naive employees plenty of times. 1. Set an unofficial policy which forbade the discussion of pay. This wasn't for the employee's benefit. It was just to hide the fact that they were paying people different rates for the same job, irrespective of performance, qualification, etc. and with a very clear gender pay gap. I fought against an employer that was not respectful of requests for reasonable adjustments by members of staff who were covered by the Equality Act. Furthermore, I have witnessed employers issuing contracts limiting employees' annual leave to well below the statutory minimum. These examples already highlight some of the rights you have in the workplace, such as the right to equal pay for equal work, reasonable adjustments if you are covered by the Equality Act, and the statutory annual leave. There are rules around rest breaks at work, daily rest, and weekly rest too. This is by no means an exhaustive list, so, be sure to be looking up your rights in the workplace. Also, make sure that the clauses in your contract do not infringe on your statutory rights. So once you know your rights, you need to know that you can assert yourself in the workplace. When it comes to workplace demands, it does you no good whatsoever to just agree to whatever your employer or manager wants until your workload is so unmanageable and overwhelming for so long that you burn out. You can absolutely say no to requests for you to pick up more work when you already have a full plate. If that feels too confrontational though, or comes with the possibility of being labelled as difficult, you can always say things like, "Sure, I can do that. These are the things I'm currently working on, so what would you like me to deprioritise?" This makes the point that you are already busy and actually puts the decision onto your manager as to what you should put on the back burner instead, or even whether to give the extra work to someone else. These types of responses can also be useful when your manager tries to give you what they see as a short task at the end of the day, week, or getting close to your annual leave that will take much longer than they seem to appreciate. Pointing out the available time, the time required for the task, and what you already have on your plate, you can make them more aware of what is and isn't possible. It is absolutely okay to say no to picking up extra shifts as well when other staff are sick or otherwise unable to work. If you overcommit at work to the detriment of your own needs, then burnout is definitely on the cards. So if you are absolutely shattered or are otherwise needing that time away from work to unwind and refresh, say no and let your manager worry about the rest. Helping out here and there when they need it can be great for you, as well as the company and the team, but only if it isn't at the cost of your own well-being. Harassment, discrimination and victimisation because of your sexual orientation or gender reassignment are illegal. It can be hard to identify any of this unless it is very open and unambiguous, if you are not already aware of what is fair and reasonable at work. And this is why I've left this till now. Once you've come to terms with the fact that this is happening, it is best to try to address things with the perpetrator. This can be really stressful, I know. Sometimes people do just need the opportunity to informally correct things though. If it is not possible or it is unsuccessful, then speaking with your manager, HR department or union rep is the next best option. By knowing that you can reasonably say no to employers and what you can reasonably expect, you're already truly partway there to avoiding future burnout. I do go further into all of this and how to deal with other workplace stresses, including unfair treatment because of your sexual orientation or gender reassignment, in my course, Manage Your Stress with Pride. And I'll give more info later in case you would like to check that out. Number 2 on the list is eat nutritious meals. It is becoming ever clearer that eating nutritious food benefits your mental as well as your physical health. The literature is filling up with evidence that depression and anxiety are influenced by what we eat and drink. Foods that are high in saturated fats and or sugar are associated with higher levels of depression and anxiety. Eating a diet full of foods which contain higher levels of quality protein, fibre, unsaturated fats, and other micronutrients is, however, associated with better mental health. Whole foods are much better than supplements for your quality of mental health. So it really is in your best interests for the majority of your meals and snacks to be made up of nutritious food. There are so many delicious recipes out there that contain plenty of fibre, micronutrients and high quality protein, without requiring in-depth knowledge and skills in the kitchen. Personally, I love YouTube channels like The Doctor's Kitchen, which allow you to see and cook along if you wish, how to cook the recipes. This kind of approach makes cooking more accessible by removing some of the mystery if you are not familiar with some of the terms or are unsure about something in the recipe. It can be reassuring sometimes to hear people like Dr. Rupi from The Doctor's Kitchen saying that you can swap out some ingredients if they are unavailable, you don't like them, or you have specific dietary requirements. Also, by using oil in your cooking rather than butter, you can get some of those healthy fats, the unsaturated ones, into your diet while also controlling the levels of the unhealthy saturated ones. It will significantly reduce the likelihood of depression, anxiety and burnout if you build in some of these healthier, less processed foods into your meals. So we've come to number 3, and that's fill your cup regularly. Do not allow yourself to be all consumed by drains on your energy. That is the recipe for burnout, well and truly. Filling your cup regularly is vital for avoiding burnout. The epitome of taking care of yourself is taking time to do the things that make you feel good, rejuvenated, energised, and refreshed. So the full analogy is that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And the cup analogy is really useful because it highlights how you have a lot more to give other people and life in general if you are taking the time to fill your cup yourself by doing things for yourself. Now, everyone feels energised and drained by different things. So while I could sit here and rattle off a list of suggestions, I won't. You will already know what you feel better after and what has a more draining effect on you. What I will do is say that you need to be making a commitment to yourself, to your well-being, by filling your cup on a regular basis. So, make that commitment now. Promise yourself that you will invest time into resting, refreshing, and re-energising. Build it into your routine, and that way it becomes normal for you to do. Well, there you have it, everyone. My top 3 ways to avoid burnout for the LGBTQ community. If you have found this helpful, then I do have a paid course called Manage Your Stress with Pride, which is an 8-module long proper deep dive into how you can manage and seriously reduce the amount of stress you experience across multiple areas of life. Just message me for more info if you're interested. I wish you all the best putting the things we've talked about today into practice, and please do let me know how you get on.